On Issues and Insiders today, we shed light on efforts to expand K-pop beyond borders through the birth of groups with all foreign members and through the blend of genres. Do stay with us. Hello and welcome to Tuesday's edition of Issues and Insiders for this August 20th here in South Korea. I'm Min Sunhee. Today we touch upon the latest events in the world of K-pop here and elsewhere. For this, I have Bernie Cho, the head of DFSB Kollective, in the studio. Bernie, it's always a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's good to be back. Thank you.
I also have Jeff Benjamin, a K-pop columnist in New York. Jeff, it's good to have you on.
Thanks for having me. Great to be back.
Right. Bernie, let's start off with some sobering news then here in South Korea. It's involving BTS member Suga and his DUI offense, which appears to have caused quite a bit of conflict in the country.
Oh, that's a bit of an understatement. Right now, there's just a raging debate, a surprising sort of split of opinions, and more importantly, the details of what actually really happened is probably a little bit more sketchy than certain. What we do know as facts are three basic items. Number one, August 6th, that was the date when apparently in the evening, BTS Sugar was caught by the police in the Yongsan district for driving some sort of vehicle with wheels at a blood alcohol level of 0.227, which is triple the legal limit in Korea. That much we know. As for the other details, there's just been, like I said before, a huge debate among fans, media, pundits, critics, and those who are just outright confused. When it comes to even the vehicle that he was driving, was it a kickboard? Was it a scooter? Was it an e-scooter? We now know what it is, but originally it was thought it was two-wheel scooter, kickboard, but now we know that it was something a little bit more substantial. In terms of sort of his status, was he found passed out or was he standing? Was he coherent? We don't know yet. And then in terms of essentially what really happened, one of the major news outlets in Korea, in sort of the race to get a scoop and have breaking news, kind of broke some of their journalistic integrity and ethics by showing a video, claiming it was Suga, and it turns out it wasn't him, and they actually had to issue a live apology. What we do know now is that Sugar is going to go through police questioning. Fans have asked for the MMA, the military manpower authorities, to look into how someone who's supposed to do the military service could be in this type of situation and whether there was some sort of neglect on his part. And then more importantly, and this to me is the bit of a shocker and the surprise, is BTS fans are split in terms of there are fans that are protesting not in front of just HYBE, but in front of the houses of individual members, asking, demanding that he be kicked out of the band. And then there are those fans who really want to stand by and support Sugar for unfortunately going through this very stressful situation. But it seems like anybody who's a critic or a commentator, whether you're on one side or the other, are being savagely attacked online. And so already there are pundits out there who are pleading with fans, don't just attack me, I'm like, stop attacking like my spouse, my family and whatnot. And so it's just a hot mess.
Right, it really is at the moment. It is a developing story as well. In the meantime, then moving forward, Jeff, onto something lighter. SM Entertainment earlier this month unveiled its first British K-pop boy band called Dear Alice over in London. What can you tell us about this group?
Yeah, and this is a very big tone shift, and I just want to give props to Bernie and to Arirang for yes, keeping with the facts and keeping with just what the facts are with such an important story like this. People's lives are at risk or can be at risk, and it's just so important, just as Bernie mentioned, to keep those ethics, keep those standards high, and make sure that we we don't be sloppy just in the effort to rush out a story. So that being said, I just want to give my props to you two in particular. But that being said, on much lighter notes, right? We do have this new boy band coming out under SM Entertainment and KCON Entertainment in partnership with a British media company. This group called Dear Alice. It's a 5-member boy band with the members that we're seeing right here, ages 19 to 23. Who went through a bit of what they're calling a musical experiment, spent 100 days. It's not exactly clear what they've seen, but they spent time training and observing and kind of going through the K-pop movements, as it would be, of what it's like to be a boy band in Korea, and then they'll take it back to their home in the UK. This is a really interesting experiment, I would say, because while this series is getting a push from the BBC, it's getting a 6-part series. It's also a really interesting timing because, like we said at the beginning of the program, many companies are going with these more globally focused, internationally focused groups, and the UK hasn't exactly been leading the pop game in a long time. There's definitely been a time when Simon Cowell and One Direction, Little Mix, we think about these really big groups at one point were really leading the way in terms of pop fandom. And Dear Alice seems to be a bit of a hope to return to that sort of world in a little bit. So it's certainly an interesting experiment. I'm very curious to see how it comes out. And already they've been teasing the music and sort of what's to come. So we'll have to see how this musical experiment comes together.
Right. And Bernie, SM, it's not alone in its efforts, that is, to expand beyond national borders. We had JYP debuting an American girl group, K-pop girl group called VCHA, I believe, which in Korean means to eliminate.
Yes.
And this group debuted in January. HYBE also had a girl group called KATSEYE, whose first performance, I believe, was at the KCON in July in LA.
That's correct.
What are your thoughts regarding these efforts by the labels to broaden out their reach?
Well, I think, in terms of the sustainability of not just K-pop music, but the music industry, exporting not just the music, not just the sounds, not just the style, but the system is what's going to keep K-pop relevant. And obviously the major labels, Universal, Sony, Warner Music, are all trying to figure out, reverse engineer the secret sauce on the success of K-pop. So the bands that you mentioned, particularly with JYP and HYBE, they're both collaborating with different sub-labels within the Universal Music Group, which is the #1 music company in the world. Each of them want to figure out, find out, and more importantly, learn from not just the experience, but the expertise of these industry leaders. Now, a lot of people want to quickly judge. Right now, the 2 bands that you mentioned, they're just literally rolling out as we speak. And so as much as people want to attach grades from A to F or possibly maybe give a pass-fail, I would say work in progress, because we have to understand that with K-pop, because the system is so sophisticated and mature, that we just take it for granted and assume that the moment a new band appears, overnight success. With these new girl bands, we have to understand, with the success of the Korean wave, these are really uncharted waters in terms of applying K-pop to non-Korean artists. And so instead of looking for the overnight success, I think we need to study and really see the organic growth of these bands as they basically re-educate and reboot Western markets into how to look at, how to study, how to appreciate these new bands coming out. And so for me, it's fascinating because although all of them had different announcement times and teases here and there, it seems like they're all coming out all at once right now. Some are coming out with a new show, some are coming out with a new single, some are coming out with a new album. And again, as much as Jeff did a great job talking about the BBC series, KATSEYE is about to roll out a new Netflix series very soon to coincide with their album release. And so I think when it comes to building these new non-Korean, but more importantly global fandoms, it's a work in progress, and more importantly than anything, it's entertaining. So we'll see how this gets traction, and more importantly, attraction for these individual acts.
Right, indeed. And Jeff, despite these active agendas within and beyond borders, second quarter findings reportedly show declining profits for the nation's big four K-pop agencies. Could you tell us a bit about these latest findings, their possible reasons, and of course your thoughts as well?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things to get in here right now. Specifically, it seemed like quarter two of this year just wasn't, the big milestone year for a lot of huge releases. Personally, I kind of think that had to do a lot with the Olympics. The Olympics are something that are always going to be a global topic. It's going to require take up a lot of, airtime. It's going to be something not just that happens in the couple weeks of the Olympics, in the lead up to the Olympics, especially South Korea being so involved this year and having a lot of exciting moments in the Olympics. But also, I think what we're talking about is that a lot of these companies have been taking lots of new avenues as of recently. Now, it's just been one quarter, but there are a lot of these new projects that are definitely trying to definitely trying to make impact in larger ways, whether that is a group that hasn't been, that isn't based in Korea, or it's a completely new debut of a group. The K-pop industry is very competitive. It's so fast moving. There's always going to be a ton going on. So naturally, I think there's going to be, I believe there will be a lot more required investment, a lot of more required money to be able to find a way to stand out. Every new group these days, every new artist needs a viewpoint, needs a concept that hasn't been seen before. It's simply not enough just to create the next generation of artists, but simply always have something that stands out, and that requires investment, that requires time, and that requires money. So I think we're seeing the previous quarter was a bit of an investment period. It's just one quarter. I think we're all feeling pretty good about quarter three, and hopefully the K-pop will just continue to rise to the top.
Right. Bernie, some pundits, however, they link the retreating profits to higher investment expenses to nurture new talent. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, again, I think you pointed it out, and Jeff threw a spotlight on it. When all of these companies are publicly traded, for a lot of financial analysts, not so much, fanboys or fangirls, so they look at the numbers and they look at tangibles, investments, margins, profits, and in some cases losses. And they look at percentages, they look at growth. But because these are entertainment companies, and yes, they're publicly traded, we cannot underestimate the intangible assets or deficits or debts. The intangibles are basically when you're developing a boy band or girl band, they're not scandal proof. And depending on the scale of the scandal, it could have a little dip to a massive dump on the price of these stocks. And so, as much as we talk about investor relations, I think we also need to talk about public relations, because when it comes to PR for not just a music artist, but for a celebrity, that's a very different skill set, and that's a very different optic, and that's a very different narrative. When we talk about conglomerate-sized corporations, which many of these music companies have become, that's a different skill set, because you're talking about corporate PR. And when it comes to handling certain scandals, whether they be light, mild, serious, severe, it has an impact on the stocks. Now, in terms of attaching a definitive number, I can't do that. But definitely it's something that does take an impact. And I think for entertainment media companies, the ability to handle PR, crisis management especially, is something that we may have to look at a little bit deeper, because it's obviously having an impact. And it's something that, unfortunately, perception sometimes becomes reality. And when the optics do not look so positive, it has an impact.
Right. And against that backdrop, in the meantime, that is, though, Jeff, JYP, it recently launched a sub-label called VCHA Entertainment to broaden its reach to include actors as well. How do you respond to these initiatives, Jeff?
Yeah, it is a really interesting initiative, because you mentioned actors, but this is actually going to be a label that kind of might include a lot of the sort of non-traditional K-pop groups, boy bands, girl groups, and also, set to include folk singers, pop singers, R&B, duos, whatever it might be. It seems like this is sort of another venture for business. I think this isn't like this isn't something totally new. You know, I think JYP actually did have an actors division at one point. Many companies do have an actors division, but this is kind of exciting, I think, because JYP has, in particular, has done a really great job at sort of having new areas for sort of the unconventional K-pop groups. They have one subsidiary called Studio J that has Day 6 and Extraordinary Heroes, who are their more rock groups. Day 6 has become such a success on the Korean charts and become very internationally loved in that way as well as a rock group, which isn't sort of the obvious, you know, boy band hit makers in that way. They really did spend some time to develop them, you know, market them in a different way. And that's what's been so cool about something like Studio J. It seems like that was a really good place to develop a rock act like that. So them creating this new subsidiary to develop different kinds of talent, I think is a really good sign instead of just putting them on the same label as, you know, their K-pop idols and groups. You know, they're showing that they want to give that specialized attention. So I'm quite excited about it.
Right, and moving away from the companies to the actual artist, Bernie, SHINee member Timin, he released a mini album back on Monday, I believe. What has been the response to his album?
Well, back on Monday sounds like a long time ago. It was just literally less than 24 hours ago. The thing with this particular release, just one word, new. Like really, really, really new. Because, you know, when an artist releases a new EP, in this case, it's extremely new because he's got a new management company, he's got a new label, and on top of that, for what it's worth, a new logo. And so for fans, this is a complete reboot of Timin. And, you know, in SHINee, you know, obviously loved and adored by fans, but he's particularly proud of this release because number one, it celebrates his 10th anniversary as a music artist. But number two, this is his first self-produced mini album, and that in and of itself is an incredibly impressive feat. And then number three, obviously because it's self-produced, deeply involved with making the music, but also the music video as well. Now, because literally this mini album just dropped 24 hours ago, I can't give any sort of chart rankings or any metrics or any measures of like how big this is, but what is very much known is he's not just dropping one title track, but two title tracks. The first is Sexy in the Air, but the second title track simultaneously released is Horizon. And on top of that, in support of this new mini album that he's obviously very proud of and the fans are very excited about, he's going to launch his first solo world tour. I got to check the date because it just printed out, but August 31st, he's going to launch his solo world tour at the new Inspire Arena in Incheon, and he's going to follow that up with 10 stops in 10 different cities, countries, mostly in the Asia Pacific region, but for Middle East fans, he's going to make a stop over in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates.
All right, that is something to look forward to then for fans there. And Jeff, Blackpink's Lisa has reportedly made history with her latest single, I Hear. What more can you tell us?
Ooh, I mean, when it comes to Lisa, I mean, what history-making news do you want to know about? Her first single after coming under her own record label, Rockstar, just became her second song to enter Billboard's Pop Songs radio airplay chart, making her the first solo female from the K-pop scene to do that on that chart. We also just saw her new Woman music video featuring Spanish singer Rosalia. That just had the biggest debut for a female K-pop soloist on Spotify. And I think we're going to see a really big debut for her on the charts next week as well. So Lisa, she already has a bunch of to be honest, she already has a bunch of Guinness World Records to her name. And I think it's just at this point, what record is she going to break next? And it's so exciting to see her embracing this new part of her career, this very confident side. And I just love seeing, you know, everything that she's creating out there. So whether it's her single Rockstar, New Woman featuring Rosalia, which I recommend everyone to go check out, you know, it's history. History's being rewritten all the time, and it's all thanks to our Lisa from Blackpink.
Right. Bernie, let's end today's talk with a few words on the acts that are staging comebacks and those that are planning to make their debut.
You know what, we don't have enough time to go through the whole laundry list of super hot releases that people are waiting for, but what I want to do is specifically focus on Teddy Park. the producer at the Black label, because he's got his hand in both cookie jars. Number one, he was the master chef on 21, and as we talked about before, their comeback is absolutely just staggering and stunning. Not only have their first 2 shows in Seoul sold out, apparently they had like something like 400,000 people waiting to buy tickets. They couldn't even get tickets for their own show. So thankfully, more shows have been added. But yeah, the 21 comeback is huge. And then the other debut coming from Teddy is his new girl band called Meow. We don't know when the new music's going to drop. The spelling's really unique because when I first saw it, it's like Meow, but it turns out it's MEOVV, but the VV looks like a W. But regardless, he's had such a tremendous track record producing 21, producing Blackpink, who are making a comeback, but technically 2025, so we'll talk about it later. But Meow is something that people are very much excited about, and they're teasing now. And then the other band that we've already talked about is KATSEYE. They're making their debut right now, and people are very much waiting to see how this will hit. I don't think it'll miss. I think it'll hit. And then, and again, the usual suspects in terms of bands, whether it's what Jeff mentioned, The Extraordinary Heroes, Zero Base One, Le Seraphim, IVE, Card, they're all making comebacks for some reason, all in the month of August. So for fans out there, there's too much choice.
Right, there's a lot to look forward to.
That's a luxury problem to have.
Right. All right, Bernie, that's all the time we have for this edition. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts. And Jeff over in New York, thank you very much for your insights. Right, well, that ends this edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. Be sure to join us same time tomorrow.